KCRW sponsors include A24, presenting Moonlight, a film chronicling 3 chapters in the life of a young black man discovering his identity and experiencing first love as he moves from childhood into manhood. In theaters now.
Hi, I'm Elvis Mitchell, and thanks for listening to The Treatment. Some of the most entertaining stories produced today, however, are not on the big screen, but they can be heard on KCRW's Unfictional. Intimate stories and artful documentaries crafted by some of the most talented radio producers across the world. Check it out. You can find Unfictional on KCRW's iTunes page. From KCRW Santa Monica and KCRW.com, it's The Treatment. Welcome to The Treatment. I'm Elvis Mitchell. My guest, Kristen Stewart, has been a muse to the Beat generation, a knight. What else has she been? Kind of a vampire. In the new movie, she's also a muse. The movie is Olivier Assayas' terrific new film. It's called Clouds of Sils Maria. First of all, good to see you again. Thanks for doing this.
Good to see you too. No, thank you.
Had you seen any of Olivier's films before you had done this?
No. I mean, I had been vaguely familiar with Carlos and familiar. I mean, you know, I knew that Juliet and him had this sort of partnership for a while, and that this was them. So sort of coming back to that. But this was a nice little eye-opening experience.
Because I have to say, there's a point when you guys are going back and forth between rehearsing and real life, and I just kind of got dizzy watching it. What was it like to do that? Definitely
dizzying for us as well, I think. You know, Juliet rehearses a lot. She goes over her lines again and again and again, and she was sort of trying to wrestle me to like down to the ground to do that in initial stages, and I was always like, you know, honestly felt like I was running from her because every single moment in the movie feels true, probably because it is like, you know, I didn't want to anticipate anything that she was going to do. She has this ability to strip you in a way, and I wanted to not be, you know, I didn't want to have any defenses up against that. I didn't want to be used to it. Yeah, so we just kind of maneuvered it every single day. We just sort of found it.
We should say in this film you play her assistant, and she's about to go off and give a speech for a mentor and the person who's been responsible for making her a star when she was 18. And then a little bunch of weird things happen, both maybe real and not so real. And beginning of the movie, we get you as a character who's kind of completely in control and sort of the ballast for her, the balance for her life. Was that one of the things that attracted you to the character?
That dynamic felt very true to a lot of relationships that I've seen exist in this business. You know, there's a lot of isolating and protecting that one sort of has to do. And it was nice to be on the flip side of that because I think that nobody could take care of her as an actress, as a person in the public eye, as a, you know, as in, you know, quote unquote artist, sort of maneuvering a sensitive, personal, devastating subject and having to do it in public. I just felt like I had this innate protective nature, and I would be a great assistant. And so that came easy. That was fun.
Well, for those of you in the business looking for a new assistant, she's here. My guest is Kristen Stewart. She's the star of Clouds of Sils Maria. But I thought what was interesting about the character, too, is she's so specific. I mean, she doesn't move around a lot. You sort of see that there's almost a calm that Maria, the character that Juliette Binoche plays, has to have around her. And in your discussion with her and Olivier, I wondered how you sort of arrived at that idea of just stillness for this person.
Valentine always had to have a real steady nature. That is the thing. She sort of plays so many things. She is a mother to Maria. She's an assistant. She's a confidant. She's a friend. She's a sister. I think they have these weird crushes on each other. Like there's so much going on that it's probably overwhelming her as well. And I think that she has to sort of keep this face on of professionalism of sorts. It's sort of like, this is my job. My job is to make sure that you're cool all the time. So anything that I might be worried about is going to be submerged. And like that's why the tattoo thing was interesting to me. I wanted to give little indications that this girl was a fully well-rounded, layered person that we actually kind of know nothing about. And so I wanted to give these little hints that, you know, oh, she has interests. Where'd she get the tattoo? Who's it about? What is this girl about? And you sort of never really know.
We were talking before we started about a tattoo I saw on your character saying a Basquiat crown. And I was asking about that because it really struck me that she seems to be the kind of person who I want to hear her talk about her own life inside of her head, and we don't really get that at all. So talk about picking
It
that.
worked.
Yeah,
That's
really.
cool.
It's like, oh, wow, what's her story?
Yeah. There were a number of tattoos that I assigned her. It was like, it was this little bit of Guernica that I actually ultimately got for real. After 2 months, I just missed it. And then there was a little smile at the foot of this ladder, and it was based on the Henry Miller short novella type thing, whatever that is. And it was so appropriate. I gave it to Juliet actually at the beginning of shooting because it's like, I don't know, kind of perfectly reflective of what I think she kind of goes through in the movie. But and then there was another one, like little fishes on my arm.
Yeah, I saw the fishes too.
Yeah.
I wondered what that meant.
It's the David Foster Wallace sort of speech that's like, where are we? Or he's like, they're swimming through the ocean and two little fish see a bigger fish and they go, and he goes, hey, like, how's the water, boys? And then they swim on, they're like, what's water? It's like, and so I thought all of those little things, like that array of interests would be like, oh, wow, I kind of respect her. I kind of feel, and you would never know these things, but you saw the Basquiat crown. Like, it was like, it takes a certain person to be an assistant. And I think that she has serious ambition. And I think she has real, genuine admiration and interest in this woman, or else she wouldn't be assisting her. She's not subservient, really. It's like, it really took this woman. It really took like this sort of particular circumstance to bring that caretaking element out of this girl.
But she's almost like a clarifying influence when they're talking back and forth about the character, and she's explaining the sort of supernatural aspects that might seem comic booky to, how best to put this, an adult.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Maria's just cracking up. I can't get this in my head. And first of all, you must have been involved in conversations like that in your life before, maybe once or twice.
Oh, my God, constantly. Yeah, I have that conversation, yeah.
And just the idea of being able to do this, again, without... Also, she gives away her passions. I mean, this is something she believes in. And when Maria's, like, laughing at her, she's affronted by it. It's like, no, this is my life. I grant you these crazy things you do. Let me explain this to you.
Mm-hmm. It almost feels like she's like, listen, you hired me not just to go get you coffee. And it's like she's constantly reminding her of that throughout the movie. And I think that Maria appreciates it. I think that it's like that's what keeps that relationship going. And that's that maddening sort of like desire to understand each other and sort of fill that distance between them. And they just can't. And that's why it ends the way that it does.
The idea of being just that kind of person who doesn't dismiss anything that's said to her is a really interesting character aspect to play out.
Especially because it's so starkly shown against somebody who's the opposite of that. But yeah, I admire people like that. I try to be, as much of that as I can be. But, I think my favorite people, especially people that I'd like to work with, people that I'd like to surround myself with, are always those that are like, God, they just never say the wrong thing. They always really think about what they say. And there's always... there's just an attentiveness to other people's points and, like not mincing words and never putting their foot in their mouths. And I think that Valentine is definitely one who thinks before she speaks and really listens to everyone and is quiet and, yeah, admirable. There's something about her that's like a little honorable.
Did you get a chance to see Irma Vep? Mm-mm. It's this movie that Assayas did starring Maggie Chung. She plays sort of a vampire, or she's an actress who's playing a vampire, and there's suddenly all these meta kind of things start happening. And it's very close in a lot of ways to this. I mean, just the idea of taking somebody, Maggie Chung's a well-known Hong Kong action star, and just playing on the idea of her public persona and what people think about her, and finding these metaphors in the context of the story. I'm guessing that must have been, or was that part of your first conversation about how much this reflects people's perceptions of you?
This is the weirdest thing ever. The script absolutely predates any involvement or consideration of me for the part of Valentine. It is coincidentally perfect for me, but I'm fairly positive that he wrote this and then sort of realized that it would have been really highly effective for me to play the part, but that it wasn't intentional. But we were well aware of, the difference that it made for me to play the part and say those words. And trust me, like on set saying them, it was like so much fun. I can't even tell you. It was hilarious. I had to not, it was like one moment on set that I remember out of many, many moments in my whole life of like trying to not laugh on camera. That was one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, because I can't help but laugh having just watching it and having spoke to you before, and knowing that you're a lot more like Valentina than you are Maria, just from my hours of experience with you.
Right.
I just feel like the idea of her I was even aware of her posture, that she doesn't give an inch. When she gets into space, she doesn't move from it.
Mm-hmm.
She got her head up. She's basically saying, okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
Just bounce things off me.
Yeah, exactly. She's a sounding board, absolutely. Maybe, and you know what? That makes sense, actually, if you think about it, because I wasn't overtly aware of my physicality. I was just sort of overtly aware of supporting her and not affecting her too much, and just sort of being a sounding board. It's a good point.
Because I just think so many of the characters you played before are people who in some ways or other can be defined by the people they're standing next to. And this is somebody who's not that. This is somebody who, again, because of those visual clues we see on her forearm and her hand, that suggestion that there's a life outside of this, and that she lives in this world of her own, and she enters Maria's world, then she leaves it. It must have been really exciting for you to do something like that. This character who defines herself for herself.
Yeah, it was fun playing an ulterior. It was fun playing like a sort of peripheral character. It was fun playing somebody who you were curious about, because typically my goal is to divulge everything. My goal, at least with my recent experience, before that it was I think before that I had done Camp X-Ray, and then before that I had taken a bunch of time off, and then before that it was Snow White, and then before that it was Twilight, and so everything about all of those things were about being, if there was any detail that you didn't know about them, it was a mistake that I made. Do you know what I mean? And so with this, it was truly the opposite of that. I was revealing aspects of her by concealing them. It was interesting.
Yeah, because what ends up happening with this is you end up giving that character kind of a mystique, because she sort of enters almost in the way that a character like that would in some kind of fantasy science fiction movies. It sort of enters and solves problems, and then if you do it right, you leave the audience with questions.
Right.
I mean, that conceptually must have been a really exciting idea for you to play out.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was all there. It was weird. It was like something that I got wrapped up into, and only now, sort of in retrospect, do I go, wow, that was a really... I mean, I knew that it was cool what we were doing, but now I look at it and I can see it really for what it is, and it is so meta in its existence that it has taken some time and separation for me to truly see it. Do you know what I mean?
What was it like the first time you saw it? You saw it in Cannes last year.
That was the second time I saw it, I think.
Okay.
I think they had screened it for me in Paris.
Well, can talk about that, seeing it by yourself and then seeing it with an audience.
Yeah.
What were those contrasts like?
It's funny, it's so 100% faithful to the script that it was not surprising to watch the movie. There are times when you watch a film and the way that it's played out and presented, it doesn't feel... Sometimes it feels sort of far away from your memory of it. And in this case, it was exactly, with precision, sort of, he put it together sort of just exactly how he told us that he was going to. It was almost like I saw the relationship between the two of them become a little bit more complex than I ever really thought. I as a young woman in this business, obviously, I think about, the implications of that and what it means and how hard it is and blah, blah, blah. But I think it really becomes apparent in the movie that we're talking about it in most conversations that we're having, the separation between us and our generations and us culturally and what the internet's doing, all of that. It's I thought that all of those things were funny at the time when we were making it, and I thought that it was, fun to speak about the superficial nature of it and blah, 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 because that is so obvious. But it just became something so personal to them and so much deeper. I don't know. I watched the movie and I was really... I was impressed. I was proud of the statement, and I just thought it was it was heavy. It felt heavier. To me, I always sort of have to go, oh, it's not a big deal, whatever. It doesn't touch us. It's totally intangible, whatever. But then I watched it and I was like, no, it's so crazy. That is so crazy. And then watching it with an audience, it was interesting to me that it was also interesting to them, because it is sort of such a narrow avenue of life that not many people have experience with, and it's so inside of it. But yet people were into it, and I don't know. I love her. It's fun for me to watch us together, just because it's like watching a home movie.
I'm going to take a break and see if I can make the show a trace more languid. My guest is Kristen Stewart, in this film is Clouds of Sils Maria. It's The Treatment. There's more to come.
This podcast is produced by KCRW, a nonprofit public radio station based in Los Angeles. We rely on listeners like you. Support the podcasts you love by becoming a member. Go to kcrw.com/join.
Welcome back. It's The Treatment. I'm talking to my newest assistant, Kristen Stewart. Her new film is Clouds of Sils Maria. You just were recently interviewed by Patti Smith. In some ways, it must have felt almost like going back into the movie again, because it's somebody who brings so much legend with her in the same way that Maria seems to. Whenever she enters a room, people are reacting to her.
It's true.
Because they don't know her at all.
Well, I mean, it was over the phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We have a really interesting, like, sort of random relationship that we sort of like occasionally check in with each other, and she'll give me little like nods of encouragement, which feels great.
When did she first do that? Do you remember?
She and I met somewhere crazy. God, I was like somewhere after the Met Ball or something in New York, or maybe after. It was so weird to meet her in this circumstance. I know this is going to sound weird. I think I was in the Boom Boom room, and she was there as well, and we found each other as two people like that in a place like that do, and it was cool, and we connected. And I'm obviously, I read Just Kids, I think, like right around that time, so I was floored, and then, yeah. So since then, we've just sort of randomly, very sort of sporadically kept in touch and sort of exchanged. Like, I've sent her writings and things, and she's awesome.
What kind of writing do you send her?
Like, I sent her a short thing that I wrote and like a couple poems, and
she sends
me.
You wrote?
Yeah.
What? Oh, really?
Oh, look at you. So she's literally will send me like a daily, not like, she'll send me like a bi-weekly quote of encouragement, or like, "Hey, you're still writing, right?" I'm like, yeah.
Wow, because when you said that, I just remember when I met you and we talked a lot about books, and you don't often talk about your literary interests at all.
Yeah, I don't, like, I really love writing. I do talk about that a lot. I think my favorite thing about reading is like the effect of the words, and not necessarily, I'm not the most linear thinker. So everything I've done has been fairly abstract, but that's like really what I'm into.
Is that why you're attracted to poetry? Because it's kind of an avenue for that kind of abstract thought.
So far, yeah. And then like I'm trying to funnel that into something else, though. I'm definitely finding ways to translate that into visual form. I'm like really. I've been talking about it for a while, but I'm really ready to make my short film. It's like should be easy as long as I just get the gusto and go do it.
Is this just a little bit of trepidation about exposing these ideas to the world? Do you just feel like you want to keep them to yourself for a while?
No, not at all. It's I just kind of want to do it right, because I've been involved in other people's great work, and I just know what it's like. I know what it's like to be on something and get the feeling that everyone there shouldn't be doing anything else, and that you're all there for a reason. And the idea of being responsible for that environment is really important to me. And I know that I'm going to fill my life with that. I know it. It's just about stepping into it in the right way.
It's The Treatment. My guest, who's ready to make her short now, so don't hire her as an assistant, is Kristen Stewart. Her new film is Clouds of Sils Maria. I think it's funny, though, because I think about some of the filmmakers you work with, like Assayas or Fincher, these people who know exactly what they want when they want it, have this thing all worked out, but they can also sort of relate conversation what the visuals are going to be. I mean, that must be enormously comforting to get to work with people like that.
I love working with people that really know what they want. I also really love people that are the find it people. There are a lot of directors that are like, yeah, I'm like, so where are we going to see this from? Is it going to be over there? Where's the perspective? And they're like, oh, we're just going to find it. And that's cool, because that sort of puts you in this really, it puts you in a zone where there's no way for you to be prepared, and that means you're always going to find something interesting. And then there's a way to look back on it and go, wow, in a way they set this up, and I was completely unaware of it. And so there's like a masterful talent to that. But then there are the guys that can tell you absolutely from day one to the last day exactly, I mean, like where you are, what you're looking at, what the color correction is going to do to your face to make it look different, like just absolutely everything. And I like both. I'm not the type of actor that needs to completely lose themselves all the time. I want to use the process to my advantage. I want to know every detail of what they're doing technically.
Have you always been that kind of actor?
Yeah, always. And it's really comforting. I worked with Julianne Moore recently, right? And she's the same exact way, whereas Juliet does not want to know any of it. And there were times on Sils that I was like, oh man, am I less invested or something? And I know, and not that that's even a legitimate question, because I know that's so untrue. I couldn't, my blood couldn't pump for any one of these projects more. But there's just such a divide between how we find our way into our characters. And then I worked with Julianne, and we were like this little team of we would just never stop talking to each other. We would probably annoy the crap out of Juliet because we just never shut up about what we were doing and how we were being, how it was being seen and what the next shot was and what we were shooting tomorrow. And yeah.
Because I just liked, one of the things I liked about this character is seeing you play somebody with intellectual confidence. Somebody who believed in what she was saying as she was saying it. And that's, a lot of the characters you play are kind of defined by physicality, or, again, like I was saying, even in Still Alice with Julianne, you're still sort of like fretting over her a little bit. Mm-hmm. And this is a character who, it's funny, and kind of tracking your career, you've gotten to play a lot of characters probably correspond with what you're going through at the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
But talk about playing Valentine, just because, again, she's just has so much belief in herself that a lot of times she doesn't have to talk until it's demanded of her.
Yeah, I think that she offers a really, to what her seems to be obvious perspective to this woman who's seeing always only one tiny little side of a situation. I mean, it was very satisfying to play somebody like that who could sit and observe and gather a bunch of information, and then when the time was right, say, hey, okay, now you've been talking and talking and talking. Now listen to me for a second. I definitely I've played characters that are defined by their silence. It was fun to do both in this case because I think she's yeah, I mean, the things that she says are aided definitely by how quiet she is, but then when she speaks, she's definitely speaking to be heard.
I have to say, in some ways, I almost felt like you were playing it as a director, where you're kind of guiding her in a lot of ways. And I just wonder if there were some directors who may have influenced, maybe on some subconscious level, even what you were doing.
I mean, it is absolutely, that is something that a good director has, I mean, that's always, that's a skill that is like necessary. I mean, you can't say, saying the right thing at the right time that's the name of the game. So yeah, actually, you're totally right. I never really thought about it like that. But she wants to have the right effect. So it's this precious little delicate game of like observing, and if listeners could see me right now, they would see that I was fielding some sort of ball with my hands. But that's kind of what it's like. It's like fielding.
Because I even felt it when you were doing the read-through and the rehearsals with her, when you just were sort of maintaining this distance and not being judgmental so she could do what she wanted. So sometimes she played it very kind of close to the vest, and then she would go really wild and emotional. And again, that when Val wasn't reacting to it, I just kind of thought, wow, what's going on here? And the movie's love of sort of keeping us as viewers off balance plays into all that too. The fact that in a weird way, it's like Val knows more than everybody does.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the cool thing about her exploding on her in that last scene, when, the other scenes were read naturally, but not necessarily with complete commitment, and then all of a sudden she explodes on her and throws things at her and is like venting in a very transparently personal way. I think that's why Valentine retreats and is like, I'll read the lines with you until the end of the scene, but I am a normal human being that lives in reality, and I have no experience with this gray area between life and this character you're playing and who we are to each other. And so I think that it's like she doesn't want to play with her in that way because it's like it's too sensitive, it's too personal, it's weird. And so then, when that scene's over and she dismisses it again, Maria dismisses the scene and what it's about and that it's trite or something, that it means nothing. It's so obvious to Valentine at that point. It's like, how could it be trite? How could it be or whatever to you if you were just screaming and crying in my face? You are lying to yourself. It's so obvious. It's like, I just can't, I don't have the words to tell you anymore. At that point, there's no energy for it.
Well, one of my favorite scenes, though, just talking about quiet, is a scene in the movie where the two of you are asleep on a mountaintop. That's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like,
That was so fun.
talk about that, because it's almost like that's the point where the movie, especially your lives, because things have gotten so tense at that point, you guys need a rest. But you sleep so peacefully near each other outside.
Yeah, I very carefully chose my place to sleep as well, because she laid down first, and I was like, I think I'd probably get up and walk over here. I'm mad at you. And it was nice. It was the perfect time of day. It was so natural. It was like we needed that at the end of that shooting day. I mean, she's a force as well to be reckoned with, I have to tell you. Like, those days were long and you know, full, pregnant.
Because just watching that, just getting a sense of that, what the demands were of working with somebody who is kind of constantly questioning herself to you, but also being weirdly confident about some things, I just felt exhausted. By that point in the movie, even.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why Valentine towards the end is like later. It's like, oh my, it's too much. It's too much. It's weird. I think that actually might be, that felt really familiar to me. I think that might be a line in the movie. It's like, it's so indulgent what they're doing. They're sitting in this little chalet, the two of them off on their own, just like stuck in their own heads, so torturously stuck in their own heads. And we get to watch that happen. It's weird.
There's something that happens near the end of the movie that relates to the title that I don't want to give away. But when that thing happens, what was your feeling about that and reading it in the script? Because it's such a key moment for this quest that these two women are on. And when it plays out like that, what was your thought about it without sort of giving too much away?
I think it says a lot about timing in life. I just think it's one of those, you know, we're all waiting for that, especially people that make movies and like these characters. I think, I don't know, I'm not speaking very well, but it's like that lightning in a bottle moment that even filmmaking is all about. It. That's like what it hinges on. And it's like capturing that moment and what it's going to feel like and planning for that moment and putting so much work into it and projecting onto it what you think it might be, and then like the surprise of what it ultimately turns out to be, and like how you've changed and learned from it. I just think that ultimately, like once the snake finally, you know, makes its appearance, it's just not how you thought they'd see it. And that's exactly what the movie's about, is, you know, perspective is everything. An object changes based on where you're standing and looking at it. And it's like that, I think that line is said 30 seconds before the snake appears. So it's kind of perfect.
Because the other thing about Valentine, she seems to be somebody who enjoys her life as she's living it.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
she seems down for an experience, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why she's talking about some things that are turned out to be in the script. I kind of go, well, I can see her doing that.
Right.
I mean, that's really what's so confounding and fun about it. And you must have just loved that the first time you saw the script, didn't you?
Yeah, she was cool. I mean, I know Juliette to be amazing, so intriguing, like talented, sexy. Everything about her is like enigmatic. And so I was like, well, if she's going to be infatuated with this young kid, she's got to be cool. There's got to be something about her that's like layered, that you just go, God, there are so many layers there, and I can't begin to guess what they are. Yeah, it was fun. I'm a lucky bastard.
On that note, now she's swearing in public radio, we'll be done. My guest is never a personal assistant, future director, I hope, but actress Kristen Stewart. Her newest film is Clouds of Sils Maria. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
No, same to you.
Okay, wow, thank you. Recording engineer who also mixes the show is Melissa Morton. It's edited and produced by Jenny Radelet. My head's in the clouds. It's The Treatment. To catch up on past episodes of The Treatment, go to KCRW.com or listen on your smartphone with KCRW's mobile apps, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. The Treatment is produced and distributed by KCRW Santa Monica.